Hello, all. Symbiosis Center for Information Technology welcomes you all to the 12th episode of On Air with Adcom. Today, we have with us Dr. Angelina Gokhale, a distinguished academic, researcher, and information security enthusiast with over 12 years of teaching experience. With a PhD in computer science, specializing in deep learning for image forensics, and dual master's degrees in computer science and management, Dr. Gokhale has mentored over 2,500 students, army veterans, and industry professionals. Her expertise spans deep learning, cybersecurity, and cyber psychology, and she is renowned for her ability to simplify complex topics through exceptional mind mapping and storyboarding skills. A passionate advocate for bridging the industry academia gap, her courses have consistently met industry standards, empowering her students to excel in their careers. Join us as we delve into her inspiring journey, her insights on AI and cybersecurity, and how she's helping bridge the industry academia gap to shape the future of tech education and research. Welcome, ma'am. So, the first question that I would like to ask is from students' perspective. For the students with little to no experience in AI and cybersecurity, what are the best foundational topics or skills to focus on?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Saksham, for the elaborate introduction. And thank you to all the listeners. This is an interesting question, and I think it requires some thought for people who are venturing out in this field. You've actually, so people who are looking forward to get into AI and cybersecurity as a combination domain, one thing importantly to watch out for is these are two different domains. And what I would recommend, so before you start building on your foundational skills in any of these domains, uh, it'll be nice to pick one of these as your primary interest area. Because what happens is the foundations of each of these areas, okay, will differ in some way. And then trying to do this together might cause you into trouble. So, of course, you can specialize along the way. But if I talk about AI, so for people who are looking to specialize or have a more interest in AI, they can start grounding themselves on certain foundational topics, and mathematics being one of them, business statistics being one of them. So although people are skeptical about how much math and AI and machine learning, and these days we get a lot of questions from students, but to answer it all, if you really want to appreciate the learning that is involved in that field, you can't do without math, you can't do without statistics, because the branches there, there's a lot of overlap and intersection we find from statistical learning, from data mining, and mathematical concepts. So it'll depend on what and how much you want to specialize in the area. So it's not, it'll vary from some simple mathematics to a higher degree of mathematics, but a basic understanding of certain concepts in linear algebra, in calculus, will definitely help. And again, matrices will definitely help students to understand how things are working in the AI space. And what I would recommend is, so if you pick AI over cybersecurity, start specializing in that area, and then look at cybersecurity as a domain that you want to, explore to apply what you're learning in AI ML, right? And when we look at cybersecurity, on the other hand, um, so since it's very much related to computer science, so computer science again as a field will have some foundation mathematics, but going forward, computer networks is a very important topic that students should take note of. So we have a lot of students who come from various backgrounds, and I think with new educational policy and all of that, we're welcoming students from different fields. Again, there is something like neurodiversity happening, so it'll be nice, if students who are trying to venture out into these fields for the first time can brush up their skills on computer networks, and they can also look up some basic principles of cybersecurity. Maybe as we go along, I'll also talk about some resources that they can look into. But
Yes, ma'am.
the thing is, I would want students to focus on. So if they pick cybersecurity over AI, focus on cybersecurity, and then look at applications in the field of artificial intelligence. Uh, as tools that they can use, so they can use some AI tools for automating certain things that they've been doing in cybersecurity. So that's something they can begin with and then venture in that space. So you'll gradually learn more about each of these topics as you proceed. Um,
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am,
Another,
you talked about
yeah,
a term, neuro, some term. Would you like to elaborate that?
Yeah, neurodiversity. Yeah, so that's like,
Yes, ma'am.
these days, even during admissions also, so we get students who come from backgrounds like chemistry or biology, or their
Yes, ma'am.
economics majors and honors, and in industry, what happens is, when you have people from different areas, so not just engineers who are opting for an IT business management degree, or a
Okay.
data science degree, but coming from different backgrounds, so they bring different perspectives to the table. So when the classroom discussions become more interesting, and in industries also, like, somebody coming from a psychology background can add a
Okay.
lot more. When even in the cybersecurity domain, you mentioned about cyber psychology, some studies that I had done, but so that's sort of a combination. So you get to just understand what people are doing from different fields,
Yes.
and so that just enriches that entire discussion and learning.
So basically, that will be from like whoever is coming from whichever field, they
Hmm.
can provide, they can give in something, some input to this. It is not computer science or IT centric. So we can
Right.
say that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. But then the
Okay.
thing is, since you asked about the foundation skills, it's important that they all appreciate and understand some basic concepts that are very much required to
Yes,
begin
ma'am.
with. Yeah.
So that was from a student's perspective. But when I talk in general context, what skills do you think graduates are missing when they enter the workforce in AI and cybersecurity? Moreover, what initiatives should institutions take to address these gaps and equip students with necessary technical, analytical, and problem-solving skills for success in the industry?
Yeah. That's a nice complex question.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah. So what I've seen in the past years, right, when graduates enter or want to get into these domains, forget the industry perspective. I think most of them are missing their foundational topics. They do not have a solid grounding or understanding of the fundamentals in AI or cybersecurity. So they need to work on those skills first. And what institutions can do, like, so we have something that we do is like a foundational program before the actual academic cycle starts, where students are introduced to certain subjects which they wouldn't have studied in their graduation. So we were talking about neurodiversity previously, and somebody coming, let's say, from a arts background or a commerce background may not have formally studied topics in computer networks or database concepts or any of the other technical subjects, mathematical foundations, etc. So we do have some courses that we offer that they can build upon, so they feel a little confident. But I think a little bit of rigor there will be required. So from my perspective, what I think is, it'd be nice to, when students, after they get their admissions confirmed, we have some time before they actually start their academic cycle. So during that time, maybe a list of courses that the institutions would have identified. So we have a lot of government supported platforms like NPTEL, uh, some
Yes,
call
ma'am.
it Swayam. So, and of course, then courses on Udemy or Coursera, or some of our faculty members also have recorded certain sessions. So it'll be nice if the institutions can curate some of those
Yes, ma'am.
courses and then offer it to the students. So like a list can go out to them, so that uh, and not just like 15 hours, maybe if it requires even 2 credits, like a 30-hour course, or a depending on the variation, depending on the subject. So I think that can help these students to get started with it, and there should be some kind of an assessment formally. So to give an instance, Saksham, so in my course, when I'm teaching, say, database and application security, so let's
Yes,
just
ma'am.
come to the database security part. There are students who've never even studied database concepts previously,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then a lot of time goes in. So although they do some foundational program, but that may not be sufficient for them to get started with. So then I have to spend some time, talking about those concepts in the class, wherein I feel, more justice can be given to more of the security concepts. So these
Yes,
things,
ma'am.
and I'm sure other faculty members may be facing challenges. So um, on their own, also students should actually be responsible to, go ensure that, they look at the program structure, the curriculum, because everything is put up on the website, and they go and, look at certain courses. But as an institution, I think we can also give a list of recommended courses like prerequisites that they must take before they enter or opt for especially electives. And
Yes, ma'am.
maybe some sort of an assessment can be done when they join, so that will ensure like there's some kind of a discipline that is and that sets in, so that they do not miss out on the important discussions, because midway through a course, we do not want students to be lost as to what's happening in the class.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think institutions can start doing that, and then that will
Yes,
sort
ma'am.
of help set
That
the pace. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
actually a great suggestion, ma'am. The introduction of these courses during the foundation time when the main cycle of this syllabus has not started. And of
yeah,
course, that will help to bridge the gap between the students who are coming from technical background and those who are coming from non-technical background.
very
Uh,
true. Yes.
yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So we'll move on to the next question. So when we talk about the integration of AI in cybersecurity, what are the most promising AI techniques for addressing modern cybersecurity threats by predicting, preventing, and mitigating them effectively?
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've started with combining AI and cybersecurity, so that
Yes, ma'am.
there are two huge branches that we're talking about. But
Yes,
maybe
ma'am.
just to cut short, like I think everybody is using OpenAI and ChatGPT and any other LLM models that are out there. We have DeepSeek that has come along.
Yes, ma'am.
So these tools, so when I look at what's important to understand is what are the problems in cybersecurity that we're trying to solve. So the kind of data that we deal with, right? So uh, let's say we are looking at a security operations center, and there's a SIEM product, security information and event management product, that
Okay, ma'am.
monitors, the different logs that are ingested from devices,
Yes, ma'am.
and can, analyze certain patterns that are seen in the logs and alert about those threats to the analyst. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
in this monitoring aspect, right? So the kind of data that we're dealing with is very real time. It's I mean real time, and it's volatile. Volatile in a way. It's dynamic. So there are different use cases in artificial intelligence. I can say talk about machine learning or statistical rules that we can actually apply in
Yes, ma'am.
this area. So this will depend on the problem statement per se. But let's say when I look at this kind of data in cybersecurity, most often the data is not labeled. So for people who understand something like supervised machine learning, we do have labeled data sets available that people can train these models on to predict or to learn or to classify, the way you mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
But sometimes when we struggle with identifying or having these labels, or even we may even lack certain samples of data sets. So this in such situations, generative AI, these LLM models or the concepts of generative AI come in very handy to generate, to
Yes, ma'am.
recreate some data sets for us, artificial data sets, which can be used. We can call it like simulation data sets. So I see a lot of use cases that are using generative AI for building such data sets for experimental analysis. The
Okay.
other use case is, when we're looking at, like I was saying, right, in such products, when we're alerting the analysts about threats or anomalies that are there in the system.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these products, or you'll see patterns, right, in the system or in the user when you want to try and identify anomalies in their behavior. Then
Yes, ma'am.
the commonly used models from the branch of machine learning are anomaly based models. So you'll find a lot of those, people are integrating anomaly based detection models in their products and in their systems that can basically, understand the patterns and raise flags whenever they suspect an anomaly. So those kind of models are used primarily from the AI perspective. And again, like I said, depending on the business use case and the problem that we're solving. So let's
Yes,
say
ma'am.
phishing attacks for that matter, so some kind of a trained or a semi supervised model will be used. We can't
Okay.
specifically talk about algorithms because that really depends on the kind of data and the use case.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
this is like the learning approaches that I'm talking about. Then of course, to an extent, reinforcement learning is also being explored in this industry. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, ma'am.
people can look at these topics and probably understand more from them. Yeah,
That was quite insightful, ma'am. So when it comes to workforce, what types of industry-specific training or certifications do you recommend for students pursuing careers in AI and cybersecurity?
great. I think I get this question a lot. So the very first thing is, I think when you're studying a program and a degree program, although you have to be mindful about some certification and specializations you'd want to take up later on,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would suggest that you do not rush with them. Because yeah, so there'll be people who will keep talking about that pursue this certification, that certification, but you really need to sit down and understand where you're headed. And the
Yes,
first
ma'am.
step I will say is students should look out for different profiles in the field of AI separately, in the field of cybersecurity separately, and then a combination. So look up different companies that are offering roles in just AI, in just cybersecurity, in just that combination space, and see um, what kind of job profiles are out there, because that
Yes,
will
ma'am.
help you to start thinking on those lines. So if you're looking at so in cybersecurity, commonly we've seen students getting into the compliance field or the audit field. So then, the kind of roles offered there will require certain specific certifications, like a lead auditor certification or an information system auditor certification. And there are
Yes,
different
ma'am.
companies, organizations offering that. Plus, when we're looking at data privacy picking up so much, if somebody wants or aspires to become a data privacy officer, then there are
Yes, ma'am.
specific certifications that person needs to look up to. Likewise, when you look at artificial intelligence, what happens is there's a whole branch. So it's not just AI is a huge field, right? So there'll be certain certifications just for, let's say, ML engineers if you want to get into a very technical side. Then there's this whole operation cycle where you deploy these machine learning models. So then,
Okay.
there are some certifications related to that, because those kind of certifications will also require solid understanding of cloud fundamentals.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
uh, with depending on where you're headed and the kind of
Okay.
tools and products, you will have to then pick up certification along the way, like a lot of them being offered by Microsoft, Amazon, and so on and so forth. But what I would rather recommend is students should focus on, like I said, getting the basics right first. Look up
Okay.
these different profiles and roles that are offered on LinkedIn. Try to
Yes, ma'am.
connect with people. If you find that this is an interesting role and you've found somebody in the network who's done that role, try to connect, try to understand from them. And then, if you're confident, if you've had some prior background before joining this MBA program in either business analytics or AI or cybersecurity to an extent, you are in a better
Okay.
position to then assess, what stream you want to head into. But if you are not
Okay.
sure, I would recommend get placed, get your
Okay.
internship, or during an internship also, right? When students get internship projects, that is when they can just talk to the mentors and managers in the company and then ask for which certification are really required. Because many a times, depending on the company you end up joining, if it's a product based company or
Yes,
if it's
ma'am.
a service based industry, you will have a difference in the certifications required. So if the client requires, let's say in a service based industry, if a client requires a particular person to be onboarded with XYZ certification, then that is a
Yes, ma'am.
certification to look out for. So I don't think I'm going to advocate any particular certification here, but just try to
Okay.
understand why do you want to pursue it, because you see there's a cost involved in terms of
Yes,
time,
yes,
effort, and money.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Yes,
it's
yes.
not just doing that, you also have to then maintain it. And then sometimes these things also get obsolete, so then there are refresher courses. So yeah, I think it's better. So our college, we do have like lead auditor certifications and things that we
Okay.
get students to do with. But then the thing is, without the basics in place, just doing these certifications are of no value.
Okay. So,
And
ma'am, just say,
yeah,
as you said, that to
yeah.
explore first, then to rush in. There are students, have you met students who have rushed into certifications and later on they realize that it was not that good of use? The industry they are working in right now, it's like that. Have you had any encounter with?
Absolutely. I think not about the industry. So what used to happen is also like, when they pick up, they'll do the certification and thinking during the interview rounds or whatever, they'll get an edge over the other candidates.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
because they lacked their basic understanding of the subject in the first place,
Yes, ma'am.
they were not able to justify the certification. And you can understand, right, from the interviewer's perspective, or let's say even if you meet a person in general, somebody who holds a certification, you obviously start thinking, of that person with those high regards, like they've specialized in that branch. So when I'm talking with somebody, if there are certain technical terms that I'm expecting a
Yes, ma'am.
certified person to use, and I do not see that, or they do not like completely understand what the concept is, then there's a mismatch of expectations there. Whereas a
Yes, ma'am.
student who's learning the subject, then I'm not expecting that kind of a language or those kind of jargons or understanding from that student. So um, you can understand, like for the it just what happens is that if you're not prepared well, then there's a mismatch of expectations. And in the industry again, then you're not you might, what may happen is you might have done the certification, you would have justified it, but you're placed onto a different profile altogether, and that has
Yes,
happened.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think there's any point in rushing to certification. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, very well, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, those were some very, great insights. You touched on a lot of topics that would help all our, listeners as well as us be clear on all the foundations, the skills, and the certifications, etc. Uh, well, I'd like to ask you a question, ma'am. How will I mean, how do you think will the integration of AI in cybersecurity reshape any traditional job roles within, the next few decades or the upcoming years?
Yeah, thank you, Arlene, for asking this question. I think I think that fear or that scare in the industry is still revolving, where they think that because of automation and the use of generative AI and all these fantastic tools out there, people are going to start losing their jobs. While so I might not look at it as losing jobs. I might just see that they'll be moved on to better positions or different job roles. So to give you an example, in my previous responses, I was talking about, let's say, an SIEM tool where we are using it for uh, monitoring security operations of a company. So what's
Yes,
happening
sir.
there is, when I say monitoring, right? What do we understand by this word? So there are different logs that are coming from different devices like firewalls, or you may have antivirus products or any other network devices that you have. And then there's
Yes,
a
sir.
team at level one that sits and monitors all of this. There's a dashboard that is created so they can see how are the logs flowing in. Is there a problem with logs getting ingested? Then are there any patterns that are detected and diagnosed and all of that? I think a major chunk of this just monitoring aspect, and also to an extent, because what may happen, these tools, then when they start raising alerts, not every alert is a true positive. Most times these tools will end up raising a lot of false positive alarms, because to
Yes,
even
sir.
categorize a particular alert as false positive, there are numerous factors that are taken into consideration. Now the tools may not be equipped with that kind of knowledge, so you need a human to sit and identify and flag it accordingly. But what started happening now with the use of AI and ML, this time that people spent on just doing this monotonous task day in day out has now, there's a paradigm shift we see, right? So by incorporating
Mhm.
AI, you have these things automated now, and since in fact, these tools can adapt to the customer environment and can assess the log patterns from, for every environment that you've set up this product in, right, or deployed it in. The model can learn these behaviors and these patterns and adapt to it, right? And then over a time, the accuracy of the model also goes on increasing. So you eliminate this process of just constantly monitoring things and flagging false positive, because this can be taken care of by that tool now, and so
Mhm.
it'll give these analysts um, a better way to focus on important problems. So if there are really critical alerts that are coming in, because they're busy doing this thing, they may not be able to give attention on time. So
Mm.
this whole first level job, right, where you're just monitoring, doing basic thing, will just get transformed into those higher level positions. So generally in security operations, you'll have like a level one, level two, level three. So level two and three people are like the experts who are now investigating further, in deep diving into the threats or the
Mhm.
attack patterns that are seen. So I think people will start moving there, because the first level can be taken care of with the help of a tool. Of course, you will need people around to maintain the model, and the data,
Yes,
and so
sir.
on and so forth. Yeah, but then I think, and like for me also personally, I think using generative AI, like I think I gave an example. So wherever we are
Mhm.
falling short of simulation use cases, right, or case based analysis, I think it's very effective to use these tools to generate or create those simulated scenarios. And
Yes, sir.
like, let's say, incident response for tomorrow, there are these tabletop exercises that are done for training the teams. So this is where having some AI tools will really come in really handy, and you can like have these numerous test cases designed, and people can start adapting to that, and practice along. So like a lot of things from the training perspective I see can be useful, from uh, building these detection rules or these threat rules with some simulated scenarios. So this is where I see AI coming up really handy
Okay.
and reshaping the industry. So you save a lot of time in that process.
Yes,
So I
sir.
don't
Well,
think
that
people should
was
see it as a threat. Yeah.
yes, well, that was actually very true. Many people are, people fear that they might lose their jobs to AI, and especially with the amount of with the rapid usage of it in the recent years, I think that is quite relevant to for people to think about it. But I really liked your answer. The way you explained it all is very well. So I'd
And
like to
sorry,
ask you the
Harleen.
next.
Yeah,
Yes,
before go to the next, just to add to this, Harleen. So I think people should see AI as a very powerful thing in their toolkit. Where they're going to empower what they do presently using AI, and not scare away from it. Like in my so when I'm teaching courses also, I think when ChatGPT came into play. You had students trying to reach out to ChatGPT for getting answers to assignments and all of that. But I think as teachers now, right? Because I'm addressing adults. So we are talking about
Mhm.
adult learning and andragogy, and this is where the mindset has to change. Like even for professors, they need to start treating students as their colleagues. And if there are these tools in the market, why not incorporate them in the classroom projects? So this is what I started doing. Like, please use GPT. While you have your basics in place, this is how you have analyzed it. Let's see what the tool is giving you as an answer. And you never know. Sometimes you might get some interesting insights which you haven't thought about. So I think it's interesting to start looking at AI positively and to use it
Yes,
for your benefit. Yeah, you can
that is very
accelerate your
true.
tasks. Yes,
That is very true. I really love that answer of yours.
thank you.
Uh,
Yeah,
well, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question.
sure.
So, what type of small-scale projects in AI and cybersecurity would provide students with, more relevant hands-on experience for industry jobs? Could you elaborate a little bit on that as well?
Sure. So I think one good practice that we follow here at Symbiosis is also that when we give these internal continuous assessments, we have different components that we have to look into, and mini project is something that I have introduced in every course that I've taught so far. Most faculty
Mhm.
members also do it, and I think for students who take up these courses and degree programs from Coursera or Udemy, you'll often find either as part of the course or like a separate course itself. There's something called as capstone projects. So I think this is something you should look forward to. So these projects will and like I was talking about adult learning. So experiential
Yes,
learning
ma'am.
is something which has to be embraced in
Mhm.
these classes, and this is where these mini project things come in handy because these exercises will help students to recall what they've learned in the
Mhm.
class, other things that they've seen, and a bit of research which requires them to look outside of the box, think outside of the box, and then apply those skills here. So they will help because on the resume also, right? As the students prepare, these projects really help a lot. So when you're answering questions, also, I think individually also it helps you connect the dots better and relate
Yes,
to
ma'am.
these foundational concepts better with the help of these projects. The other thing that I would like to say is that we don't really look out much, but so Facebook used to have this back then, and Meta now, for example. But I
Mhm.
think you can look up. There used to be this academics program page separately where there are a lot of
Mhm.
internships that were offered. So while you may not really be eligible for those kind of internships, but you can at least look at the kind of project topics or what are the requirements there, and then
Mhm.
try to work out some solutions. And there are a lot of platforms out there where you can apply for internships also. So central
Yes, ma'am.
universities and all of them, like IITs, especially, we've had students in the past collaborated with even IIT professors for certain projects. So I think assisting even faculty members in the college, right, who are pursuing their research or their PhD,
Yes, ma'am.
wherever there's if you find your area of interest, there's no harm in just taking up some in-house project from the faculty and working towards it, apart from the regular courses you're doing, or
Yes.
form groups and look up a domain that you're interested in. Because when I'm saying neurodiversity, somebody from chemistry is coming in, why not look at some application there? So look at topics like, supposing you come from a chemistry background and you want to specialize in artificial intelligence. So I'm sure there
Mhm.
are a lot of data sets out there in chemistry that some problems that or use cases that interested you. So look at those and see how you can apply artificial intelligence there. Or like we were talking about cybersecurity, so people who love cybersecurity can start looking at data sets where you can apply artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. So somebody coming, let's say, from e-commerce or retail,
Mhm.
look at that domain, and then look at what are the cybersecurity threats in that domain. So study the
Mhm.
landscape there, because you'll find a lot of information where we have our threat actors who have attacked a specific sector or a specific geography. So
Yes, ma'am.
having something that you like or a domain that you like, and then combining it with what you're studying also helps. So some projects that you can take up by yourself, apart from reaching out to certain companies or certain institutions and research professors. So that way that will
That
help.
is
Yeah.
very true, ma'am. That is very true. I mean, experiential learning, we have, quite a lot of projects here as well
Correct.
in the campus. And I think they're
Yeah.
very helpful when it comes to getting, new insights or trying to learn for ourselves as well. I
Yeah.
really liked that answer, answer of yours as well.
Thank
The
you.
next thing I'd like to ask you is more about, courses or, resources, online resources. So, I mean, what are the online resources or courses or, any sort of tutorials that are generally best suited for any beginner who wants to, get started with AI and cybersecurity? What would be your suggestions about it?
Great. I think if you don't mind, Harleen, I might also refer some books along the way. Uh,
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
yeah, and I have a long list that I have personally
We're all ears
looked
to
up.
it, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll begin with cybersecurity. So, like I said, of course, you would want to enter into the combination space, and that's what I did. But I began with computer science and cybersecurity, and then I moved on to artificial intelligence. So these days, students are fortunate that with all of these degree programs, you have these subjects side by side. But you would want to pick one, start specializing in one, then move to the other instead of just jumping onto both together. So that
Yes,
might
ma'am.
be a little bit of problem. Now, talking about cybersecurity, so like I was saying, networks, computer networks is a fundamental topic. So people who are not familiar with it, we have Andrew Tenenbaum, or we have Behraus Farauzen, uh,
Mm-hmm.
computer networks. If people can Google, you'll find it. So there's this book by one of the professors I've followed, Atul Kahate. It's called Cryptography and Network Security. Uh, and Tata McGraw-Hill publication. I think it's a fantastic book for beginners who are getting into this. And it's not like a very basic book. You'll also have moderate to difficult level of understanding, but it's written so well that you can understand it much better. Then my favorite channel on YouTube is Computer File. This is
Mm-hmm.
by the University of Nottingham, and they do these lovely. So I think they'll have playlists for AI also. They'll have playlists for math. They'll have playlists for cybersecurity. So Computer File is
Mm-hmm.
one channel to look out for. For people who want to specialize in cybersecurity and get some certifications by, let's say, CompTIA or whatever, then Professor Messer
Okay.
has his courses out there in Security Plus, Network Plus. So again, even if not certification, you can just look up the playlist that he offers for security fundamentals, for network fundamentals. So that is one
Okay.
channel I recommend. For people who would love to get into the technical side of security, where they want to um, do some kind of red teaming or security testing, we
Mm-hmm.
also have something called as bug bounty. So there is this website called Hacker One and Bug Crowd. So two
Okay.
of these websites to look out for, where you'll have a lot of companies putting up their applications out there, and they also have like these 101 sessions, which will introduce
Mm-hmm.
people to the concepts of security. So even if you're not interested in testing side, just look at the concepts and fundamentals there. Then
Okay, ma'am.
we have the ISACA website. So people getting into audit or governance side of things should look up that website. You have a lot of free resources. So even if you do not have a membership, that is fine, but a
Mm.
lot of free resources to look out for, a lot of templates there, for people who get into audit and compliance. You'll have like these checklists of questions, and check things that you need to know. So you have these templates ready as a
Okay, ma'am.
reference, so you'll
Mm-hmm.
find them there. Then there's CIO online. There's one more channel, Internet Freedom Foundation. And
Okay.
another favorite of mine is Professor Wool from Tel Aviv University. So he has this channel called AlgoSec. So
Mm-hmm.
you will have a lot of concepts, let's say, going forward when you're talking about, um, like microsegmentation and some of these topics that will come up later when you're moving to
Okay.
cloud security. So all of these things will be covered there. And then,
That was
yeah, maybe my notes from DWES too would help in security. Yeah,
that was actually nice, ma'am. I will definitely, keep these resources handy with
sure.
myself.
Yeah, now moving to AI, there's
Yes,
this
ma'am.
favorite channel of mine called Code Emporium. So
Okay.
there's this gentleman Ajay Haltor, and he's
Mm-hmm.
also a professor, I think. But yeah, he does wonderful, extensive videos on different concepts, and let's talk about large language models or transformers, and GPT when it came up. So he takes up recent research papers and base concepts, and so people really looking to specialize can look up that channel. My
Mm-hmm.
personal favorite, whom I've learned from, is Professor Balaraman Ravindran from IIT Madras, and his lectures on Introduction to Machine Learning or Reinforcement Learning are available there on NPTEL. They're also there on YouTube. Then
Okay.
deeplearning.ai is another website to look out for. So people who are experimenting with LLMs and chatbots and knowledge graphs and all of that, you have a lot of tutorials out there and short-term courses, so you can pick up those things.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, deep learning has been my area of interest, and my professor introduced me to that book by Francois Chollet, who works in the Google Brain team. So it's Deep
Okay.
Learning Using Python by Manning Publication. So that's an interesting book. And Massachusetts, MIT, Deep Learning,
Yes, ma'am.
that course by Alexander Amini and Ava Soleimani. So I think that's another course to look out for. And there's one young student who actually started his channel called Normalized Nerd on YouTube, and a
Mhm.
lot of interesting, mathematical, statistical things that or concepts you require to understand AI models, right, or ML models. You'll find it
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that channel. And for math, my personal favorite has been Three Blue, One Brown, and Number File is another channel to look out for. So I think I've summarized it all. So people who are listening can make a list of this, and I could probably even share it with you. You can
Yes, ma'am.
put it up
Please do,
wherever you
because these are, plenty of resources that you stated out for us. I think they'll be more than
Yes,
helpful for all
sure.
the beginners out there who really want to, get into AI or cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of resources, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Yes, thank you, Halim.
Also,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I'd like to ask one last and final question.
Mhm.
What key advice would you offer to any aspiring professional in AI and cybersecurity who is looking to make a significant impact in the industry? Like, could you also like share some of your personal guiding principles or your success mantras with us as well as the listeners too?
Great. I think the basic mantra I've been stating this from the beginning is to get your basics right. So what has
That's
helped me
true.
in the industry also while I was teaching, you see generative AI and these concepts they started coming out later. So
Yes,
while
ma'am.
I work in corporate now, when I was asked to work on these concepts and these models now, it wasn't difficult for me to pick it up because my foundations were intact. So
Mm-hmm.
get your basics right. Try to understand what are you learning, why are you learning, have some objective in mind. And what helps is to stay connected with one problem or use case that you love.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll help so like I was talking in the beginning, take one area of interest, let's say e-commerce, or let's say any other problem use case. So for me because for me my research has been in AI, but the problem I was solving was image forgery detection. So I was very keen on image forensics and image processing, and that topic really kept me motivated to understand that topic from different perspectives. I think what will
Yes.
make you stand out is when you take a concept that you're learning and try to analyze it from different perspectives. So like the behavioral side of that particular let's say image forensics, for instance, from my story. So what is the behavioral impact of such kind
Mm-hmm.
of attacks on individuals? Then the technical side of what kind of techniques were used, then what are the different ways or approaches to solving that problem, and then that helped me to pick up what I wanted and kept me going on. So likewise, if you're when you're looking to pursue AI and cybersecurity, like I said, pick one, then
Yes,
starting
ma'am.
with both. And
Mm.
any problem statement, any project that you're taking, try to have a holistic perspective. So what I see lacking today is interpretation skills, big time. You
Yes, ma'am.
cannot there are students who can just talk about the results, but that's not what is required. So I would
Mm.
advise students to start analyzing. Critical thinking is something you have to build, and creative thinking as well. And then you should be able to analyze and interpret. So I think the methodology I follow in classroom discussions is case based methodology. So
Yes, ma'am.
even in the assessment, there's no right or wrong answer. What
Mm.
I love and I would want students to do is to build that approach to solving that problem and be able to justify it. So if you say answer A, there has to be a justification or a reasoning. And that is a skill I think one should build on, which will take you a long way in the industry, because then there is, thought going into whatever you're doing instead of just taking things as it is, or prima facie. So you want to you have an answer ready, you are able to justify, and that helps you in the long run.
True, ma'am. True.
Yeah. So maybe in a nutshell, yeah, get your basics right, think out of the box. So build on your critical thinking skills, and build your analytical skills,
Mm.
and have a holistic approach to whatever you're taking. So yeah, I think that should be.
So, well, ma'am, that was actually, quite a very nice advice for all of us as well as the listeners. And it was very, I think it was much needed for all of us as well. And now I think I'd like to conclude this podcast. So, as we wrap up with this enlightening conversation with Dr. Angelina, We extend our deepest gratitude for her invaluable insights on AI, cybersecurity, and the evolving dynamics of the industry academia landscape. Her visionary perspective reminds us that these advancements are not just technological leaps, but transformative forces shaping the future of education, research, and innovation. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode of On Air with Adcom.